What is up, folks? Welcome to another week of the High Tech Podcast. I am Josh, one of the hosts of the High Tech Podcast right here, and I'm joined by Will, the fellow dancing co-host. If you're just listening to audio, you can't see, but he's doing like little hand motions and whatever that is. What's up, Will? How you doing? How's your week?
Oh, it's another day in paradise. Get my pre-recording jitters out. I don't know. I don't have any jitters doing this, but just dancing. In my head, I hear the theme song. Like it's.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know. I might be weird.
Yeah.
I might be weird. In fact, it's not a might. I am weird. When we open the episode, I hear in my head, like we're not playing it. We do that all in post these days. Sadly,
I miss it. Yeah, I do
wait
miss
for
being
next
able to
week
play it live.
and StreamYard.
Yeah.
Anyways, so it's playing in my head, and there's like I feel like dancing to it because, buckle up. It's time to whatever.
Whatever the words were that AI generated. For music. I can't remember what they are. I just feel like I remember the vibe. It's got a bounce to it. That's all I really remember. Yeah, welcome for another week, everyone, of the High Tech Podcast. We're going to be continuing the AI train, if you will, that seems to be our episodes lately. I think it's just basically Will and I have to talk about AI now all the time. So you're also gonna deal with it. That's basically the vibe. But before we jump into that, or even jump into the beginning stuff, we'll just how's the day? How's the week going so far? It's in our world, it's a Tuesday. Any fun stories from the week that we can share with our listeners?
You say fun, and you say can share. I don't know, but go anyways. I recently changed teams in my day job, and it was good. It's a good motion. So I was previously been in HR, and now I'm on the customer education side. Well, I've been in the HR team for 3.5 years, and I have been running the learning management system, and I have kind of like made the thing work how I want it to. Right? I've codified it. I've fixed it. I've improved
pancakes,
it, etc.
It does this whole thing. It's like a whole...
Even makes julienne fries. Dink, dink, it broke. Anyone ever seen Aladdin? Yes. So, now that I'm on the customer education side...
reference that I did not get at all until you told me what it was.
It's in the first, 5 minutes.
I was like, is this a British Bake-Off thing he's making a joke about right now? I don't know what's going on.
Hollywood handshake.
I do know that.
No. So I just now my life going over to the new team, I'm still on the same learning management system, and I still own this learning management system. I'm just finding so many things that are broken. Here's a fun one. Okay, here's a fun one, and that's not too revelatory.
No.
I found out that our system had a plug-in for badges and gamification. So we had purchased that at some point. We've since not used it because we've since gotten rid of the purchase, the add-on, because we've not used it. But we found out that at some point, right, the logs and stuff are all there. At some point, someone unknown to us created a badge that would be distributed to anyone if they completed any course.
What? What's the badge?
Just course completed.
Really?
Just huzzah. 25 points for Gryffindor. You completed a course.
That's like the first award you get in a video game just for opening the video game.
Playing the tutorial.
Yeah, you've created your character. Good job. Success.
So that's its own problem, right? That everyone for years, and I'm in the same system that I've always been in. I've never noticed this. I've never paid attention to the badges to see that, I have a ton. I have 400 badges because of what I do. I test all the courses. I'm in stuff all the time, whatever. But I found this out because we got a ticket because someone believed that they had one of our certifications, right? So we're in customer education. We certify our customers on our product. They're like, where's my certificate? I completed on the 24th, and it run around to discover this. They had received a badge that said they completed the certificate of this blah, blah, blah course, but not that they received the certification for a specific thing, right? So this is what revealed it, but now this person thinks they're certified in our product, and they are not. They did a course.
That's fun.
That's just my life right now. I'm very thankful. The team I'm with, my new boss and everybody's great. Loving it. good fit. They want me to fix things. They know that this stuff's happening. They know that the problems are there. They just don't know what they are. So honestly, I feel like the kid who puts the finger in the dike kind of thing to hold the water back. Like, you know, if I pull my finger out of this dam, whoosh, I am going to get soaked. Yeah. So I am now a permanent resident on the team because if they lose me, the system just won't work. There's a lot to discover. So that's every day of my job.
I mean,
discovering new things,
I feel you,
fixing
man.
things.
I once took over for a guy that I'm just joking.
Then the year of our Lord 2018.
Yeah. But folks, if you're just listening to the High Tech Podcast now and you've not listened to past episodes, first of all, what you doing? Go back and listen. But second of all,
you got 191 episodes to go listen to.
You got so much binging to do right now. But second of all, if you don't know, my original job at the institution I'm at was I was taking over for Will. So that's a little bit of context, you know.
Yep.
So
I left him a dumpster fire.
It worked perfectly fine, except for the 89 things that didn't.
Here's a quick question for you. You gave me a quick question. Here's a quick question for you.
Okay.
I recall writing some ridiculously large legacy document. I remember calling it legacy because talk about arrogance. Talk about
that was ridiculously large.
Talk about back in the days, right?
No, I'm just joking.
We never made 100 courses in a year, right? We were just a measly little mom and pop shop.
I didn't need to have a giant document. I had a Notion database, so
that's fair. But you're not gonna hurt my feelings. Like, how many times did you use it? Like, did you use it like twice and throw it out? Like, was it practically useless? Yeah,
that's a really good question. I definitely referenced it.
Right.
More than
I had credentials, history.
Credentials
like, there's things in there.
That was a different team back then too.
Right.
Like we were not nearly as organized as we are now. I say that kind of laughing because we're redoing a whole bunch of stuff, so it doesn't feel like we're organized. I'm trying to think. I referenced it some. Right, you had like credentials. I think honestly, the most I ever referenced it was like about the course evaluation software.
Oh yeah,
if you remember that.
Atrocious.
So for folks, the course evaluation software
still have
is not my favorite.
Good. Has it gotten any better?
I plead the fifth. Actually, they do have a new version that we're supposed to be testing that actually is better. To their credit, is a better user experience. We just have
this thing looked like it was made in 1989.
Yeah, they're the nicest people ever, and they provided fantastic support. But the tool's not my favorite. They have a version 3 right now that is actually much better. We just have not. To their credit, they're allowing us to do like a free upgrade to it. We just haven't had time to test it because it's like a completely different interface. Anyway,
I'll be curious.
I referenced it for that, and I still remember there was like a note in that document that said something. This note like sticks in my head. Will had done something with Jira. For those of you who don't know, there's a tool called Jira, and if you do know Jira, it's because you know it's normally for like agile project management, like troubleshooting teams, like DevOps teams, like there's a lot of different types of teams that use it, but in general, it's for agile project management. It's a very technical software. I hate it. I think it's the worst. But Will jerry-rigged it to do something for the team that had nothing to do with what Jira is designed to do, and they weren't allowed to tell IT that they had done it. Like it was like a thing that like was done under the table from IT, but like the general IT leadership wasn't supposed to know. And I still remember in parentheses, there was something about Jira in that document, and it said in capital letters in parentheses, "You can't tell anyone about this." Like that was like, I was like, what shadow ops spy team have I just joined in the middle of learning development? Like this is crazy. Yeah. So anyway,
because if they found out, they would have shut it down.
Yeah. No, I definitely referenced it. I will say 90% of that document no longer exists anymore. But
100%.
It's pretty much gone.
I would be upset if it was still relevant.
Yeah. Pretty much most of it's all gone. Anyway. Okay. Enough of those random things. That's where we're at this week in some fun. This is
when Sam can turn off the episode, right?
Yeah.
She got upset with us not doing.
We used to ask
this
each other.
in remembrance of Sam.
personal questions, and now I'm bringing it back a little bit. Anyway, before we get into all the AI fun things that we have for this week, just a reminder, you can find us and subscribe on all the socials. Find us at High Tech Podcast or at High Tech Pod. Make sure to follow, check it out. There's lots of cool shorts from our episodes. Chris is back in full force as the social media manager of the High Tech Podcast. Thanks, and he's doing some pretty cool stuff, and will continue to be doing some cool stuff. So make sure to subscribe, like, follow, hit the bell. I don't know, grab on for the ride, whatever they call it on the socials. At High Tech Podcast or at High Tech Pod, you can find us there, YouTube especially, or Spotify. Go check us out and subscribe so you can find out about new episodes. If you want to talk to us, let us know what you're thinking. You have feelings about something we said. You have a picture you want to share with us about an animal. I don't know. We used to do that. We don't really do it very much anymore. But anyway, you want to be on the podcast, whatever it may be, you can hit us up at inbox@hightechpod.us. We'd love to hear from you. And then just a reminder, we have a website. Every episode has a website page with links to resources. If we create something in the episode that we can share, we do. For instance, our gaming episodes have our tanks games that we created using AI tools over the last couple weeks. If you want to make the pie that we made during the learning series, we link out to the YouTuber that helped us do it. So you go check out those episode pages at hightechpod.us, and make sure to check out the resources and fun things that we place over there. They're fun. They come in handy. Like Robin just used some of that stuff to get Rosebud stuff set up for her course that she should be doing with Rosebud. So anyway, okay, now all that's out of the way, let's jump into this week's topic, this discussion that we're gonna break open here, which is, are there AI experts? This is the question that Will and I are trying to answer this week. I think, it's interesting. We've talked a lot about AI on the podcast, and the fact that we're asking this question later, I don't know if this shows our lack of forethought before we started just opening AI tools, but I'll give some context for why we're talking about this episode, okay? So I have been to now 2 conferences. Actually, when we wrote this episode, we're planning for it. It was only 1, but I have now been to 2 conferences where we have had AI discussions. One of them I've already shared. It's a local conference that already spawned another episode that we came up with. But in that conference, there was actually, I think, Will, it was the same session. I wish I could say there were 2 different sessions, but I'm pretty sure it was the same session.
Unlikely.
They were sharing this idea, and they posed this question that I know is going to surprise all of you that educators probably had a problem with, which was, it was just, they meant it as a simple question. I don't think they anticipated quite as much pushback as they got on the question itself, which was, how do we prepare our students or future, if you're not in education, let's just take this out of the student piece. How do we prepare people, right, for AI-driven jobs or workforces? That was kind of the terminology they used. I thought this question was funny because, one, I wasn't sure what they meant by an AI-driven job. I had thoughts, but I was like, I don't know that that's like a terminology we all just think we agree on. And then what was interesting is, there were topics coming out of that conversation of well, we create courses on how to teach them how to write prompts. We teach students how to create prompts for AI tools. We teach them all the different tools that they can use. We give them resources for how to, it was, a lot of it was around creating prompts, and things around there. And there was more to that, but there was this general vibe from those who were really positively viewing this terminology, as that was kind of what it got to. So Will and I were talking about this a couple weeks ago, and I think this posed an interesting question for us, which was, I see a lot of this in this AI conversation. And Will, correct me if you feel differently, but I would put LinkedIn on this right now, where LinkedIn, sometimes, not always, because I love several things that friends or people that we follow post, feels like a cesspool of posts that are the 5 top things to master AI, or absolutely, if you're not using AI, you're behind, or here's how I write a prompt, and they're color.
Here's my brand new AI course.
Yes, here's my new AI course. Here's my book on AI. Here's my training on AI. We see a lot of people doing this, courses, trainings on AI, and I'm not against them, right? I'm not against doing this stuff. But my question just kind of I guess my question of how do we prepare students for the future workforce where AI is a thing, to use AI in their workforce.
Right.
There's part of me that wonders, is this a dumb premise? This is a dumb question.
Yeah.
For instance, let me give an example why. Let me justify why I'm not just being a grumpy McGrumpy face, okay? This is I don't know why. That's what I could come up with.
Your dad voice is showing already.
Yeah,
You've got
already
this.
there. Okay, so when people first released like the calculator or the internet was released, all of these same discussions happened, which was like, how do we train people how to type on calculators? How do we train people how to Google? Right? Like, how many people actually need to know how to Google anymore? You know what I mean? Or like need to know like search indexing on the internet. And I'm not saying like that stuff wasn't helpful at that immediate time. But I kind of feel like there's this false thing that like if we train students on stuff now, they'll be prepared for the future. But the problem is you have no idea what the future actually looks like. Like by the time most of these people get out of their courses or they're done with their course, and maybe some like professional development courses in jobs at that moment are different, you know what I mean, like the short ones. But these people take full 4-week programs, maybe even going to masters now, because everybody seems to have a master's. It seems to be just as easy to collect a doctorate as long as you have enough money. Like all these people going out, the workforce with AI is going to look totally different because it looks totally different tomorrow. Like it's not. I think I struggle with this idea that these people kind of posturing themselves as the experts in AI, when at the end of the day, like I just saw a panel this thing on Friday. They have a panel of people, experts from educators to like actual people who know how to build LLMs. Ironically, the word for like the restaurant store, which I think is funny. But like they're local people, right? The conference is all about supposed to be local people. But even one of them is like one of the guys from Casper AI, who's like a part of like one of the original teams who helped build AI.
Wow.
So like he knows his stuff about AI. We'll acknowledge he knows like the inner workings of AI, right?
Right.
And they're sharing interesting stuff. They're sharing about where stuff is going in the medical field, right? They're sharing about stuff that they're doing right now, today, in the work environment. And I think that's worth hearing. But they're all making predictions about where things are going. Or like how to use AI. But like I kind of feel like we're all just making it up as we go. And so like this whole idea of like I'm an AI expert and you need to listen to me or learn from me so that you can also be an AI expert and be ready for the future is what concerns me. Is the thing that I maybe take issue with, that I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Like I'm not sure creating a whole bunch of courses on AI for students right now, other than like talking about them in the environment that they're going to be dealing with them. Right. That's worth it. I'm just not sure. Like creating a whole bunch of like how to write prompt courses and things is worth it. Is it worth all of this stuff, or do we still keep teaching the same things we should be teaching on how to interact with technology? AI is no different. I think that's where I'm wrestling. I don't know what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, and I think like it's like you're saying about the people who participate in the session you were at and stuff like that. Like there's a difference I think between people who can make LLMs, the technical side of it. Like I might consider them an expert in the technology, but when we speak broadly about AI and how to use AI, how to craft a future for AI, how to change it, how to use it, all these things, like I don't think there's such a thing as an expert. You know, like does that resonate? Like I'm not going to be able to tell the guy, you know, from Casper AI something he doesn't know about how AI works. But he, in the same sense, isn't really able to even predict how we're going to use it tomorrow or a month from now or in 5 years. Like, even coming back to how you started this, you know, if we talk about an AI-driven job, I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to either have jobs completed by AI. That might be called an AI-driven job, but like at that point, it's not a job. You're using tools, you're using technology to do the work for you. It's not your job. It's not the AI's job. It's a task. But if you think about like the work I'm doing, I'm using AI in my job all the time. Is my job now an AI driven job? No, because there's still the expertise required by my human capacity to create all the stuff that I do. So I'm using AI all the time, but I wouldn't consider my job an AI driven job. But if we think about the future and what's possible in the long term, maybe AI is driving cars. That doesn't, to me, that doesn't mean that the car is now a job, right? Like the car is just, it's a tool, and now it's got AI driving it. So
yeah.
I think we're dealing with a lot of misnomers. I think you're right though that like LinkedIn and these spaces, a lot of people are using these kinds of things to make money quick, and it is a moment where there's been a vacuum for this kind of technology. You know, Google is the mega tool it is today because they were so good at it so early. But if you remember, those of us who do remember, Ask Jeeves and Start Page, and today there's
Jeeves.
DuckDuckGo and right.
I miss Ask Jeeves.
Google was not the only tool back in the day. You know, every platform had their own little search index tool, and then Google just did it the best. So while right now we've got hundreds of little AI companies sprouting up, I suspect we'll see a consolidation of those things to somebody's, you know, and that's what they're trying to do in the marketing approach, right? Google has Gemini. Microsoft has Copilot. They want their AI to get a brand, to get a sense of self. And so that's the thing. If we're talking about the future and that's the thing that's going to last. But we have no idea. We have no idea what that's going to be, what it's going to look like. You know, right now, Gemini is just in my phone. What if Gemini's in my fridge and my car and my heater and my mouse? You know, Gemini could be everywhere. Well, then we're talking a whole different world that none of us can fathom right now.
Yeah.
It's just not possible.
Yes, and I think also what I'm getting at here is like it's not even like the predicting future thing. It's just like I'm feeling, and maybe I'm feeling this a lot because of the work you and I are both dealing with in our work environments on AI. But I feel like there's like this thing that's lingering in education, and it's lingering in like professional development and learning and development. It's like if you're not training people on AI, you're not preparing them for the future. And like, but the problem is, what are we training them on? With all due respect. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Like, listen, I like AI, and we talk about AI a lot on the podcast, and there's a lot of interesting stuff you can do with AI. I'm not saying you don't experiment with AI. I'm not saying you don't have clear guidelines for how you use AI. I'm not saying you don't find ways to innovate with AI and find efficiencies. Obviously, Will and I think that because we talk about it on the podcast a lot, especially in the last month. But when it comes down to it, it's a tool that takes data, creates or does something for you to find efficiency. It's not like, let me put this in perspective. The speaker at this conference on Friday says he would put AI up with the technical innovation of fire and the Industrial Revolution in America.
Wow.
Okay? Do I agree with that? Probably not. I'm just going to be honest. I don't like fire. I mean, like, that's a big, fire's a big thing. You know what I mean? Like fire, fire did a lot. And the Industrial Revolution completely changed the way, like, life was, right? To a certain extent, right? And in his defense, AI is changing things, right? Like, he made arguments of, like, he made some offhanded comment about AI in a light bulb, and somebody asked him, like, well, why do we need AI in a light bulb? And he was like, well, you already have one in your light bulbs. Like, your light bulbs are turning on when you use your phone, like, stuff like that's not just, like, random stuff. You can program AI to, like, do stuff. So he's not wrong, right? But, like, do I think that's on the same scale as fire? I'm gonna be honest, I don't, right? And I think maybe maybe I'll be proven wrong in a decade, and that's totally fine. But like, it was interesting. Some of the educators brought up in this conference, right? Because recently, Bill Gates made a comment about teachers won't be needed in whatever 10 years. I don't know. They always pick some random decade number, and they're like, teachers won't be needed in 10 years because of AI. What's interesting is you go back in history. I think it's Thomas Edison, one of the fellow educators we know. I don't know if you remember Nicole from Lancaster Learns, but
Fan and Style,
so she made a comment about that he's quoted back in the early days of electricity as it's starting to realize what electricity is going to produce, right? Like the TV starting to come about, you're starting to see some of this stuff. There's a comment made back then as well. Teachers aren't going to be needed in forever because they thought, if we look back in history, we'll remember that they thought that TVs were going to replace teachers, which, like, it didn't replace teachers. Yes, we got more Bill Nye the Science Guy, but we still have, like, teachers, right? Like,
right.
So, like, and she was kind of making this comment that I thought was interesting, which is like, I think what's interesting about technology, and I think the reason we were posing this question, are there AI experts, is because, I don't know, I'm kind of feeling like we need to level ourselves a little bit, because every time we release a new tech, the same two things happen, okay? One group hates it, and the devil invented it. The other group thinks we finally reached utopia. Right? Yep. Like, we won't, and for some reason, utopia involves never needing teachers again and not having to work. I don't know why those are two of the things we keep going to, but I think, like, the whole point of this question of, is there AI experts, is it's like, is it really that different? Like, can't we just teach people critical skills? Like, how to critically evaluate information, how to communicate well, right? How to explore and continue learning, right? Into whatever it is. And if we do those couple of things, is that enough for us to keep staying above float of the AI wave that people keep trying to make it sound like it's going to make all of us obsolete if we're not digging into AI every single day of our lives? I think that's kind of my question. I don't know. We've kind of gotten a little soapboxy on this episode, but like, are you feeling the same way? Your experience is different, right? Because you're in a lot more corporate stuff now than I am, and you and I look at this stuff differently. So I'm curious, like, is that? Do you feel, or am I too? I have a kid now, so I'm old. You know,
instantly aged 5 years and 3 months. No, I think that what's different between our contexts at a measure is, like, our leadership, we have a product. My day job, we have a product, right? And that product is data driven. And so it's an opportunity to integrate AI into the product. At the same time, we're a pretty small but mighty kind of company. We don't have 10,000 employees, so they're looking to increase efficiency wherever they can, use AI. Okay, these good things. So there's an ethos not only of want and acceptance, but almost need. There's a culture at my business, my day job, that's saying we need to be able to do this. We need to be able to have this capacity. You need. And I think while what I hear from you is, like, there's a support for investigating AI, there's still a lot of skepticism or cynicism in education about it altogether. So that's probably the difference in our contexts. But, like, personally, I think that looking for the ways it can help you and trying things out is a really good goal. That does not mean you have to sell your soul to the devil, or give all your data up, right? Like, at one level, I think today there's a little bit of this, like you're saying, the polar experience. There's a little bit of a cultural moment where it's like you're Apple or you're Google. There's nothing in between. Don't even think about it. There's not, it's like, people can't play in this middle space. And if you buy Apple, it's like, well, then you should just have all Apple. Like, it's a whole ecosystem. You should get it all, and it's going to work better for you that way, whatever it is. I don't think we need that attitude with AI, because very specifically, we are all using this label AI to encapsulate hundreds of types of technologies, right? Like, when you and I say AI, we're using a pretty shared sense of what it is. But this is part of even why we just did the last couple episodes where we talked about, like, the AI buddies. We didn't really want to commit to AI assistants or AI agents, right? Because, like, that language is even changing day to day. So we just used our own term, AI buddies. But, like, if I say AI, Josh, that could be Grammarly's text prediction tool. If I say AI, it could be Midjourney to make video images.
Yeah, 100%.
Like everything we talk about when we're talking about AI, it could be autonomous cars or the Gemini in my phone, right? So, like, it's not even fair for folks to get on this no or yes spectrum. I don't think it's like intellectually curious enough to be on that spectrum, because every single AI should be approached with the same caution and curiosity of the entire subject, right? So some people are just like, no, I don't do AI, and they're just like turn themselves away. And it's like, well, what do you mean you don't do AI? You use Google, right? Because they're already optimizing searches with LLMs. I don't use AI.
Optimizing is a questionable term for Google right now.
That's the goal, isn't it?
One might argue all they've done is add a very inaccurate text summary tool at the top of Google.
Oh, it's so much fun. It's so much fun. What's in this recipe? It tells you the exactly wrong options.
Oh my gosh. Real quick aside, Google Gemini, which does do well in its actual tool for it. But like, I asked it like something about a video game, like the easiest answer. It was entirely wrong. That thing didn't exist in the game at all. Like, I had to dig, and I ended up finding, I was in a deep hole in Reddit. And I was like, oh, it turns out they're wrong. That's not a thing.
Tell me something about Final Fantasy. And it's like, well, the main character, Mario Itsumi, it's like, no.
Gemini is weird, man. It is not. Anyway, sorry, I took us off on a side.
I come at it and I say that I think that a lot of us are postured. All right, some magic editing this week with some fun technical issues, but we'll make this work. So the overall point of what we're dealing with on the subject of AI, where I was getting to for a second ago, was I think that a lot of folks throw the entire subject out when we should be judicious. We should be thinking about, each tool we're approaching. Yes, it's important to kind of address the larger issue of artificial intelligence, AI, but that subject is not ChatGPT. That subject is not Gemini. That each of these is a tool that I think we need to take our time and investigate and try out and not be too scared of, right? Because I think that's a lot of why we get folks who won't address it or think it's fear. And ChatGPT, if you ask it for a recipe, there's no risk. There's no risk asking ChatGPT for a recipe or having Midjourney generate you a picture of a.
It accidentally gives you a recipe for a bomb. I mean, there are. Like,
or it's poisonous.
Yeah, it could just be poisonous. There's risk in all things. Really, I think.
I just think that you would ask kind of like, where are you standing? Like that's why I'm willing to try this stuff out.
Yeah.
It's not going to hurt me. I'm careful. I don't put my personal data in. I don't put in other people's data in. I don't put IP in there that I want to, I don't give it a short story I'm writing. Like, I'm careful. I don't give it stuff that's going to take something from me.
Yeah.
I think that's the caution we should bring to it. And then otherwise, try it out.
Yeah, no, I agree. And obviously I agree with trying it out. Like, I use it all the time. I'm not like this is me bringing this up isn't even like an anti-AI thing, right? It's, I just wonder if, I think I'm, in all my years of wisdom, because I'm a little bit older than you, but my beard gives me a couple even extra years probably.
And now you're dad, +5, right?
Yeah, +5. Well, no, probably just my brain stopped working. I look at this and I see time and time again on how we're reacting to technology, and we seemingly over focus on training people on the tool now and the features than training people on just practically how to engage with technology, like the core skills to engaging with technology. You know what I mean? Like the how to evaluate information, how to have the digital literacy conversation, like how often is students actually getting robust teaching on how to engage with technology that's not like, here's how you write prompts or here's how you open this app, we put so much focus on the how that we forget the training the people, the thinking around technology and the appropriate engagement, right? So, obviously, I'm all for trying stuff out. I think it's just I think everybody's looking at this AI thing and going, the world is going to be different. And yes, the world will be different. But I've heard people throw out, education forever will be entirely transformed. And, I don't know about that. I mean, Yes, will it be different? Probably. Will hopefully assessments get better because we're finally realizing that people could just search information? Hopefully. I'm hoping there is change. I'm not saying I don't think there will be. I just feel like we're like acting like we're preparing our students for this entire like fire. We're preparing them for like we've never been able to cook meals before, and now we are able to cook meals. And if they don't know how to cook or make a fire, they'll die. I don't think that's the case with AI, right? I think the core skills are the more important part.
That's it. That's where I think pairing what I was just coming off of, even with that, kind of a pivot to what should we do here, like. If we're not just supposed to be scared of AI generally, and that's not the problem, then the thing we need the students to be able to do on the broad, and anyone, learners, anybody dealing with AI, need to be able to do is think critically and develop the skills they need for themselves. Like I was just expressing a little bit ago, those are some simple things, but I don't give it personal information. I don't give it intellectual property. I don't give it, that is me thinking through critical evaluation of what is private and what is public. And not, it seems simple, but not everybody's good at that. That's how we have the Samsung leak, and that's how we have some big picture items that have happened around LLMs and ChatGPT and all that kind of stuff. So if we can help others, and this is kind of the battle that higher ed's been dealing with. It's why we did the higher ed dead episode, forever ago. Like, we don't really need all of these instructional courses about how to do prompt engineering or how to do this. They're helpful, but what we need people to be able to do is think for themselves and use critical thinking to evaluate what is safe and what is not safe. And if you can determine that ChatGPT is unsafe for a task you want to accomplish, but AI could accomplish the task you want to do, then build your own. Like that's this moment where we can be entrepreneurial. It's like, okay, that's not good to use ChatGPT to evaluate HR data. That is not a good example. That is not a good thing to do. Do not put HR data into ChatGPT. But it would be really useful to have an AI to help me evaluate HR data. So now I need a private one. I need to build one that has only access to my instructions and my data and has, all of the policies and procedures in place to protect everyone's data and process. We've got a solution. We can still get to the good thing we want to do. We just have to be able to think through what exactly we're trying to accomplish and then help each other get there. I think this is one of those moments that's actually really cool in humanity. Everyone is trying to do this. Everyone, I think, who's at least got an altruistic approach to this is trying to do this because they believe it will help humanity get better. We will all become stronger, faster, smarter, more efficient, whatever. And I think that's a very positive thing. So let's focus on that energy. Let's protect ourselves from the fringe stuff, but move forwards towards, making it easier to do things, making it more cost efficient, making it have less impact on the environment, the climate. There's tons that we can benefit from here. So let's start with the right thinking skills, helping each other out, and not be so scared of it. We can't just gung-ho this, but we can accomplish something good if we set out with the right goal.
I know you're trying to transition us into the thing we want to talk about next, reality, and I'm going to totally demolish that for a hot second because I just need to say for a second, you're so much more positive than I am in this area. Because you made a comment, you were like, in general, people are trying to make the world better. And, like, curmudgeon Josh over here is like, or they're just trying to make more money. That kind of feels like the vibe.
Both of those.
Both of those. Okay. That's fine. History definitely says when we're given new technology, we tend to do better things with it.
Yeah. Well, I just don't think you're going to find a quote of Sam Altman, right? The big name behind OpenAI saying, "Oh, I'm only doing this to become a billionaire." That may be true.
He's not.
I don't think
he's not going to say it. That's
right. Yes, right. That's the quiet part.
Yeah, he's got filters. Come on. No, you're right. In general, people do want to. I think there are people out there who are driving this who do want to make things better. I will leave Sam Altman out of the story for a second because I don't want to go there. But there are definitely people there. Anyway, the whole point we're talking about, right, is you made a comment about the being human side of it. I think one of the advantages with the AI that I want to really see people lean more into is, okay, I think what I'm asking for is there aren't really any AI experts, but there are experts at what it means to be human. And if we understand that better, what it means to be human, what it means to think critically, what it means to evaluate critically, then we'll be better prepared for any type of technology, whether it's AI, whether it's the pencil. We've already dealt with that, but just looking back at the OG, the like the whatever it is, we'll be better prepared to look at that. Also, fun fact, I think this was also Nicole who made this quote at the AI conference on Friday, and then we'll go to our next thing that we're going to go to. I forgot that this was a thing until she brought it up, but that there's a quote from, I think it's Aristotle, that was it Aristotle that was concerned about the creation of the pencil?
I don't know.
Or was it
familiar?
Anyway, old Greek philosopher. Someone was Google this real quick or ask ChatGPT. Yep. I can't remember who it was. I feel like it was Aristotle, but I can't.
Well, he is the last in line. So it's Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. So he's the.
Yeah, it might have been Socrates actually.
Well, GPT says there's no evidence that any Greek philosopher, including Socrates, was concerned with making the pencil, but I don't necessarily believe GPT, so
I'm gonna just add. Now I'm very curious because I don't want to misquote if this is a.
There is work from Plato. He argued against writing. He believed that the memory was important.
Yes, it was Plato. That's okay. This is who it was. It was Plato. While they didn't specifically discuss the pencil, he had concerns about writing. That's what it was, and that is something that is quoted. Plato did actually have issues with writing. I know that it's tough to take me at the level of confidence right now because I clearly didn't know. But anyway, there was a quote, and I kind of forgot about this, but I do remember this from when she was talking about it. I remembered it from my philosophy class days, of that Plato made some comments about writing and was concerned about memory, to what Will is saying, and was concerned it would make us stupider. Now, we all look back at that and laugh, but like look back at that and the claims people are making about the pencil. That was a big piece of technology back then, right? The ability to write. 10 years from now, somebody's going to look back and be like, look at those silly people who thought AI was going to give us R2-D2. Yeah. We got him, but he doesn't do nearly as much as we thought he was going to. At
the same time, I can't tell you the last time I used a pencil.
Yes, things have changed, right?
So technology changes. And anyway, that's a good thing.
But what does not change is the need for critical thinking, the need for just good people, the need for good communication skills. All of those things have, from the day of Plato to today, have been important, right? So I think one of the groups I appreciate on how they're integrating with technology and dealing with this kind of human technology conversation and looking at this from a critical skill side, looking at this from our human nature side, is we've talked about them before, the Center for Humane Technology. And Will and I were talking as we were getting ready to do this episode. We originally thought about maybe highlighting a tech tool, which there'll be more coming. I'm excited about something Claude is doing recently. You and I need to talk about. But the Humane Tech, we referenced them in several episodes. So we did a series last fall called the Human Tech series. And we dealt with some of these things. And honestly, they were episodes 171 through 174. So if you haven't listened to them, go check them out. But they were Will and I's attempt at trying to lay a ground framework for how to interact and engage with technology in general in a way that we thought would be helpful for stuff even like AI, but beyond that, right? So some of that series ideas came from Humane Technology, and we talked about them, but Will and I realized we never really showed who they were. We linked to their site on our website, but we never really talked about them. And so if this is something that this conversation resonates with you, you're like, yes, I want to look at the critical thinking. I want to look at how do we deal with us as humans and how we interact with technology and get to some of the core stuff. Humane Technology is doing that. So it's called Center for Humane Technology. I just want to share their website real quick here, and we'll share it in the show notes as well. On our website page, but it's just called humanetech.com is their stuff. And full disclosure, right? Humane Technology, Center for Humane Technology has some political stuff that they're doing. And I don't necessarily disagree with what they're trying to do, but I have not dug into everything they stand for. as an organization. So I don't know literally everything they're doing. But I do know one of the things that they are arguing, which is that even with the AI, they might argue that AI is kind of a big pivot point in technology of what we're dealing with. But at the end of the day, they're really arguing, like, even social media, all of the technology we've dealt with, that we haven't really taken careful look at how we interact with it and still keep kind of our humanness. How do we still thrive and empower ourselves with technology rather than kind of being taken down by technology? And so that's what they kind of do. You can see on their main website, they're all about articulating the challenges of technology, identifying ways to intervene, and really thrive and empower us as humans in the way we interact with technology. The thing, though, I really like about them is they have a whole bunch of resources that talk about divided attention, a whole bunch of things, including the Foundations for Human Technology course content that they have, which gets into a bunch of stuff that Will and I actually used as some inspiration for our conversations when we were talking about the Human Tech series stuff that I found very interesting.
Do me a quick favor, scrolling up to the top, hit their About Us, and go to, I think it's just the top option under About Us.
Our story?
Yeah, our story. Yeah, great. I'd just like to put this up on screen because I just was reading it. Scroll down a little bit so we've got that for visibility. Like, Tristan Harris, one of the two founders, started this in 2013.
Yeah.
And this is something that predates the modern movement around AI. And yet, it started with that viral presentation, a call to minimize distraction and respect users' attention. At that time, he was a Google design ethicist. I love that. Now, note, he is no longer a Google design ethicist. And you know what I would believe about Google? They have not minimized distractions, and they have not respected users' attention. So clearly his path needed to diverge like the one less traveled in the woods. But the Humane Technology Center came out of that approach where this is a person who walked up to these kinds of technologies in 2013. And can you recall what your smartphone was like in 2013? It was practically still a brick compared to what it was capable of doing today. This guy was starting this conversation then, and it's only continued to grow into the year 2025, where we know that these tools and these technologies can be harmful to our attention, to our ability to relate to one another's, to, there's good parts, right? But he's calling this out 12 years ago, before even AI. And I can only imagine, how much more this is relevant today, as it's only gotten, as technology and AI and cell phones and all this has only gotten more ubiquitous.
Yeah, well, I would expect about them is they're pushing a lot for more policy from a country situation, like actually political policy around AI and protections for people, because they very much argue that, like, understandably, that these companies running a lot of the technology are abusing some of the technology's ability to distract and pull people's attention. And they're big, this is where the humane terminology comes from, and this is a good call out, Will, that there's a more humane way to use technology, and that actually empowers us, doesn't distract us or bring us down. It's one of the reasons they're very focused on social media as well, because they see how social media is being used to really foster habits in people that bring them back to the technology and the resource, and just continually habituate a habit of distraction instead of what they're actually doing. And what I appreciate about Humane Technology and some of the core stuff I was showing was that they'll talk about how it's not entirely the technology's fault. These are our human people today will argue that we're we have a shorter attention span because of technology. I think it's incorrect. People have written from even early days of complaining about the short attention span of human beings. We are easily distracted monkeys. No, I'm just joking. We are very easily distracted. And the difference is that people are keying into this and using technology to habituate the worst part of ourselves when it comes to focus and attention. And Humane Technology talks a lot about that. And so that's, to Will's point, they're not some people who've never used technology. They come from the tech environment. And they're looking for kind of a comprehensive shift in technology to kind of strengthen the way we deal with and engage with technology. And it's cool how they're doing it. They talk about shifting perspective. They're working with organizations. They provide a lot of practical resources on their team, and they're a whole team of people now that are doing what they're doing. So I think that's super cool. And I think where I first got into them, as I was talking about, was kind of this course. I was digging into some information. They had this Foundations of Humane Technology, and it was super interesting. They kind of talked about our human nature, the way we interact with things, consequences, and their whole goal through all of this is helping people thrive in their engagement with technology, right? And so this goes way beyond just AI. But to me, this is a group that's trying to both affect change in the world for the way things are engaged with technology, but also resource people to understand how we engage with technology. So when Will and I are talking about some of those critical thinking skills, understanding our own human nature and how we interact with technology, how to clearly evaluate. Humane Technology has produced a lot of resources on that type of stuff. So I encourage you to go check out their website if you haven't already. Check out some of their stuff. They have TED Talks, they have resources, they have the course I showed, and we'll put the link on our website notes as well. But they're definitely worth checking out, and I think it's a great organization, and very much love the direction they're going with stuff. I don't agree with absolutely everything they put out, but they I think have a good perspective on how humans can take control of technology for the better, for our betterment, and how we should be really changing the way. I think in their ideal world, some of the companies would be changing the way that they're leveraging technology to
I can only imagine which ones.
Empower people instead of kind of honestly take them for what they're worth at the end of the day. And so I think this type of stuff is important. And really, if we taught our students these types of things, we might have a better world in the future with technology, as opposed to just teaching them how to write a prompt. So I think that's kind of what I'm getting at.
I'm going to take a quick bit of carte blanche, if you will.
Ooh, okay.
To bring a little history lesson to this, because you poked on something a second ago, that this isn't a new problem, especially the point of attention. And I think it's worth flexing some of my nerd muscles here.
Okay. Ooh, nerd muscles.
If
also known as
recall,
non-muscles. They're just
exactly
string beans.
When we studied New Testament theology, you probably did it in your space as well. But like
I've never looked at that before as a
big wins.
Seminary student.
You're not an ex-seminary student. You completed seminary.
I completed. Yeah. I guess
you have a.
Would that
whatever.
Be and,
I don't know.
I'm just an appropriate.
X would imply to me that you didn't complete it.
Well,
or something.
X is
so
to me is no
true.
longer. I guess completed semery student.
Now we're having a whole.
Anyway, sorry, this is a whole semantic conversation.
There's a tool that was used in in ancient Greece to teach people how to write. It was called the progymnasmata.
Oh,
the Progymnasmata had a number of different versions and had different authors and stuff, but the point of it was to establish a method for instructing people rhetorically. And so in our New Testament studies, this became very relevant to how the New Testament was written and how writing was taking place. But the Progymnasmata goes back potentially as early as the 4th century BC or 5th century BC. And so it's super old. And guess what? The problem they were trying to deal with then, getting learners to focus on the subject, to get the full scope of the content they were trying to teach, right? And so this is not new. It's at least 2,500 years old, right? That people are dealing with this problem. So weird flex, pulled out my Greek nerddom here.
Can I nerd for a second too, just real quick? Where we've talked about humane technology, but I think there's a applicable aside. So we're gonna go a straight nerd in a different direction for a hot second, okay? Okay. And part of the reason I think this explains to a certain extent why I keep bringing up this type of topic, right? With technology. So Will knows I love Brandon Sanderson books. Okay. So, yes. Right. So like I have not read his newest one from the Stormlight Archive. I was going to read it on our cruise and then baby happened. So we have not done that, but that's in my list for the beach this summer. But so you can't see it here because it's covered up. It's just off screen, I think, depending. I don't know, it might just be the way my screen is right now.
It's over there.
It's over there? Okay. So I can't figure out how to use Squadcast to actually see if I can see it. Yeah, you can barely see it. Okay. So anyway, I love Brandon Sanderson. He's a fantasy author. He's written the Stormlight Archives, Mistborn, but there's this common theme in a lot of his books. And honestly, this is probably why I like The Wheel of Time as well. And he probably kind of got this from The Wheel of Time because he wrote some of the finishing books for Robert Jones, who was the author of The Wheel of Time. It's kind of this theme in the book where, like, at the beginning of the series, people think they understand their history. They think they understand where they came from. They have a reality that they understand. And they start to uncover things throughout the series of books. So usually it's over the entire series. And by the end, they start to uncover realities about their history that are wrong. That are like they were completely incorrect. Oh. They had made this assumption, but it had been so long since that thing had happened that they had forgotten about it. Right, like this type of you see, and it's not just him doing these themes, right? Like Wheel of Time has this theme.
Right.
For those of you who might look at it, one of the things I love about, oh my gosh, going real nerd, Battlestar Galactica is a similar theme where like,
wow,
they come to find out that their ancestors left an incredibly technologically advanced world. Because it fell apart and now their world's falling apart. So it's this idea of nothing new under the sun. And I love these themes because they're just kind of fun. They're fun the way, but I think one of the reasons I'm attracted to them is because we are exactly like this in reality. We are too often, the common phrase, those who don't learn from history repeat it. I would argue that it's not those who don't learn from history, it's just we repeat it. That's the phrase. We repeat it. Like the attention thing is nothing new. People act like we're dealing with a new thing. Now it looks different because we've got technology that looks different, but they were dealing with it back then. At the end of the day, this is why I keep arguing this question. This is why I think this question is important. Is there AI experts out there? The reality, and maybe we should even think of this question differently, because really we're not asking that there's AI experts. We're saying AI is not different than what we're dealing with. And what we really need is experts in people. We need our students to be experts in critical thinking and people and understanding who they are so that they can understand how to interact with technology, because whether it's whatever that thing was from back in the Greek days, I've already forgotten the terminology for it, which is funny, to AI now, like humans have always sucked at keeping their attention on things they don't want to keep their attention on a regular basis, right? Yeah. And so I think that's the point, is that are there AI experts? No, because we kind of can't seem to get this whole technology thing down. But we could if we started focusing on how we think critically and how we engage with the things around us. And then it doesn't matter what new thing comes around. If we understand that better, we're better equipped to deal with whatever and adapt with whatever. And that's how you equip your students to be more effective in their future jobs. It's that. Mm-hmm. It's not by teaching them on how to write a prompt and tell AI that it should be a marketer while you're putting a social media post. Like that's not how we're getting there. And I think that's maybe where I'd like to see the shift of the conversation go as we look at AI more. And then Will and I think we'll try to do that a bit more as we're looking at it from the podcast side. So anyway, let's close this one out, Will. I think we've waxed and waned, which is also ironically characters from a Brandon Sanderson book, a bit more than we planned. So why don't you remind the people how to get a hold of us?
As always, folks, head over to the socials. Find us at High Tech Podcast or at High Tech Pod. Email us, inbox@hightechpod.us if you want to be on the show. If you want to sponsor us, we'd love that. Any other things, just find us there. And our website is hightechpod.us. Every single episode we create has a complimentary, both complimentary with an E and I, website page, episode page with all the information about the episode. Links
it's not
like
complimentary.
Today to
if you click
Tech.
on our website, we charge you 50 cents a click. It's the whole thing.
I wish. I would love to cover the website's cost that way.
We have tokens on our website. It's a whole thing.
Oh, gosh. I can't with tokens right now. So yeah, that's it. This is episode 192. Next week, 193, we're bringing the roastery back. So hang tight for
do we have things to say?
We are stoked.
It's going to be fiery next week, folks. Just make sure to tune in for that.
Bring your fire mugs.
I forgot about that.
All right, folks. Another wrap. This is a wrap on another week. Empowering minds.
Embracing tech. Cheers.
Buckle up, let's ride the wave. Future's calling, tech to crave. High-tech podcasts light the way. Join the journey, click and play.